Did humans live with dinosaurs? Well, most of us were told as early as kindergarten or first grade that dinosaurs are millions of years old. Is this idea backed up by science? Is it possible that humans have even lived with dinosaurs? Is it possible that dinosaurs have lived in our world just decades ago? So, is it feasible that humans have actually lived with dinosaurs? Well, what does science say about the subject? Well, why is this question so important? Because scientists, including evolutionists, generally acknowledge that if humans and dinosaurs live together, then evolution is proven completely false. Now, the Earth has layers in it throughout the world. These layers make up what is known as the so-called geological column. Now, this column is supposed to show the order in which evolution took place. And if you look at the bottom here, you'll see supposedly the simpler forms of life, and then as you move up, you get to the dinosaurs, and finally to the mammals, and then to humans. So the earliest layers, called strata, are supposed to have the earliest forms of life. Then as we move up this column, we find the Permian, Jurassic, and Cretaceous layers. These all included the dinosaurs. And as we continue, as I mentioned, then we finally get up to where humans are. Now, evolution has been explained to us this way since our elementary school years. Unfortunately, for evolutionists, this is not what is found throughout the world. The geological column is actually missing. The geological column does not exist anywhere in the world, not even close. Now, if you look at the Grand Canyon, that's probably the best example in the world. About half of the so-called geological column is there, but even then, some of the layers are out of order, where the older layers are on top of the so-called younger layers. So that leads us to the second point. The geological column is actually out of order around the entire globe. So let's take a look at the dinosaurs that are found in these layers. Now, does the scientific evidence support the fact that dinosaurs and humans have lived together? The only thing that needs to be done is to find fossils of humans, or human artifacts, in the same layers or the strata that dinosaurs are found in. And one of the very best books that illustrate this is Against All Odds by Carl E. Baugh. So if we could find human artifacts and or fossils in every layer that were dinosaurs, or in any of the layers where dinosaurs lived, this would certainly give good credence to the idea that they have lived together at the same time. Well, the greatest examples of dinosaurs and humans living together are found in the Paluxy River area around Glen Rose, Texas. This area is well known for its fossil footprints of dinosaurs. Hundreds of these have been discovered in this area over the last number of decades. These are found in the Cretaceous layer. But then a number of human footprints were found in the same layer as the dinosaur footprints. Some even crossed the dinosaur footprints. So this idea that human fossil footprints cross dinosaur footprints was sharply attacked by scientists, that is, the evolutionists. Well, one of the ideas that these scientists proposed was that these human footprints were carved. And incidentally, there had been some of the dinosaur footprints carved in the past in order to sell them, and that had been done decades before. But here's the thing you have to face. Just because there is a counterfeit, such as money, does that mean that there are no real ones? Well, fortunately, there's a very easy way to discover whether foot imprints are real or carved. Real foot imprints will have the same kind of pressure points and imprints that humans have today. The same walking pattern for humans is unlike any other creature on Earth. So, one of these fossilized footprints was removed from the ground. This footprint, called the Burdick print, has been cross-sectioned and examined by dozens of podiatrists, that is, foot doctors, as well as scientists. The results have been overwhelming. The footprint could come from nothing other than a human. But the adventure continues. Stan Taylor was a man that had a great interest in the area of the Paluxy River, where these fossilized footprints were found. At first, there were only 2 human footprints discovered in that area that he decided to excavate. He decided to follow these tracks by removing tons of limestone with earth-moving machinery, so they could discover if there were any more fossilized footprints that might be present. So what he was doing was actually seeing the direction where these 2 footprints were and just started removing the layers there so he could see if there were more footprints that were following that. This would remove any possibility that the footprints could possibly be carved. Well, sure enough, the team discovered a number of other human tracks. These tracks received the name the Taylor Trail. Well, 7 more tracks were uncovered, and incidentally, 3-toed dinosaur tracks are also found crossing these tracks. More excavation was done later, and even more of these very human-looking tracks were discovered. A total of 14 footprints that appeared to be completely human were discovered in this series of tracks. Now, this find has been one of the most controversial discoveries of all times, and as mentioned earlier, is not accepted by many evolutionist scientists. And again, the reason is it does not fit their preconceived ideas that dinosaurs and humans did not live at the same time. Well, still another fossil was discovered in the Paluxy River area, that of a human finger. After it had been carefully removed, it was later sectioned to reveal the porous bone structure like that of a human. Dr. Dale Peterson, MD, used a CT scan and an MRI to identify the joints, and he was able to see the evidence of the ligaments that ran through this human finger. A number of scientists, and again this would be the evolutionists, argued that this could not be the fossil of a human finger because it would be flattened by the weight of the rock above it. Now, this actually is true in many cases, but in this case the argument is flawed. There are literally thousands of fossilized worms in this area that are not flattened, and worms would have a much greater tendency to flatten than a finger. Another remarkable print is that of a human hand. This fossilized print was also discovered in the Cretaceous rock, where there are literally dozens of dinosaur footprints. Another human footprint was discovered by a Jeremy McDonald in 1987. This fossil was very well preserved. These footprints were discovered in Permian rock, that is, early dinosaur period, which is supposed to be much earlier than those found in the Cretaceous time period. And a more recent discovery of a fossilized footprint is that of a dinosaur crossing a human footprint with a part of the dinosaur print in the human one. This is referred to as the Delk print. This fossil has been examined and CT scanned with 800 X-rays to make sure that this was a genuine fossil. Well, this would mean that the compression points and all the other aspects of the fossil would have to show that it was genuine. The results seem to be very conclusive. Everything showed that it was the real thing. It could not have been a carving. Some still deny the authenticity of this fossil to this day, even though the evidence is quite convincing. And there have also been quite a number of fossilized human footprints found in other parts of the U.S. as well as other nations. The Paluxy River area is by no means the only area that these human footprints have been found in. A man named Max Hahn discovered a buried hammer in the Cretaceous layer. The handle was petrified, and the metal part of it had a very special coating that kept it from rusting. The formation of this quality of metal would be impossible today unless it was formed under very special conditions that may be created in a laboratory. Now, human artifacts have been found in every layer of the earth. That includes even the Cambrian layer of rock where the so-called simplest of life forms were supposed to have begun. This would indicate that humans have been alive in every time period. But is that the only possibility? That is, that humans have lived in every time period? There is another possibility, but not well accepted over the last 150 years. Instead of humans living with dinosaurs, could it be possible that all life lived together on Earth during the last few thousand years? So, instead of humans living with dinosaurs, could it be that they simply lived with us? We've already seen that the Geological Column, which is still regarded as fact by a majority of scientists today, is total fiction. It does not exist anywhere in the world. So fossils must be buried quickly so that they can fossilize. Now, this idea is also contrary to what we have been taught. But if it is not buried quickly, the creature would have been eaten by scavengers or simply rotted away. We have been told that fossils were formed slowly and buried slowly, about a human hair's width per year. Well, this would mean that some creatures would have to lay around for hundreds, thousands, or even millions of years without decaying or being eaten by scavengers. This type of thing is certainly not common today. In fact, we do not find this kind of slow fossil formation at all today. And incidentally, we have found fossils that had to have been formed very, very quickly, such as a fish eating another fish, or we found a human fossilized lower leg in a boot that was made in 1950, or in the early 1950s. But since the geological column is rather mixed up, that is, out of order, could it be possible that the layers of strata, that is, the rock layers, were made quickly by a catastrophic event like a gigantic flood? And by the way, this would cause the layers to be mixed up. Now that would seem to make sense because of all the layers with the fossils are formed with water, that is, sedimentary rock. There are literally dozens of historical and cultural accounts of this type of flood throughout the world, in literally dozens of different cultures. And by the way, the count of these accounts of a flood, a worldwide flood, has now reached over 200. In fact, has reached about 300.